welcome back to our podcast. I'm your host, Jenny, and here with me is
Alex.
And our goal for this podcast is to connect with other creators, artists, and anyone who loves and appreciates story. So I'm glad you guys are here. We're going to start off by telling you guys what has been going on with us. Life update.
Life update. What hasn't been going on? No, I don't know. Well, aside from work, personal work, lots of ideas flowing through the head. And that's been exciting. I always love diving into personal work.
What kind of ideas have you been floating?
I've been developing my own short stories that revolve around actual feelings and dreams that I've had in the past and in the current. And I've been trying to write those down. I've been trying to visualize them and create them sort of in an animated form through Blender.
When was the last upload? Because I know you use YouTube for your shorts.
Oh yeah, right. When was the last? One was literally... I've been updating almost every weekend. I'll say that.
Wow.
And to clarify, I don't always get the time to make new things, but I've already made a lot of stuff that I hadn't gotten around to edit and put together. So what I do on the weekends in the evenings, sometimes I edit those things little by little, and then when it's done, I upload it.
Wasn't there one that was kind of went viral?
I don't know if it went viral.
It's like a lot of views than usual. What's the title of that?
That one was for a story I had called Dead City. I think that's the one you're talking about. But the stuff I've been working on recently is for something called Silicone Dreams. But I'd like to think that they're all together. They're not separate universes. They're all in one thing. So in the end, it's just an exercise to practice telling story better and better, since I should be doing that. Dead City is inspired by my childhood fears and sort of nightmares that I used to have. And Silicone Dreams is more of current state of my dreams and nightmares. I don't think I'm doing a good explanation for the ideas, but they're all revolving around dreams. Yeah, they're all revolving around dreams. One might be a little bit more grounded and consistent, and which is Dead City, and Silicone Dreams I do feel like is a bit more obscure and less consistent in terms of story.
How long does it take you to do one shot?
Oh, that varies. That's a really good question. That varies. Sometimes it takes a long time to prepare a shot and create all the characters and the assets and the environment and the set. And really it's about planning out what I ultimately need so I don't have an excess of empty space that will slow down the render time, since I'm rendering this in Blender. But you know what? Sometimes I also use live footage. I shoot things for real and composite that into my animated shots. So I guess it depends how long. Sometimes a shot can take about an hour to two to really get set up and look nice. And then the actual rendering, that varies. I don't know how long. I guess it depends on the length and the amount of frames that I've calculated for a shot. And, it just goes from there. The longest process is when I start editing and creating audio and sound.
Mm. It looks so real the way you create it out of nowhere, and it's just all digital. Do you feel like, because it looks so real, when I don't know if people has commented this, that they don't believe you that you have done it all digitally, and they're kind of accusing you that you're using real footage even though it's done. I know you sometimes you would incorporate some real footage, but probably 90% is all digitally made. So do you ever feel insulted? Oh, you use AI. That can't be done by just Blender.
Well, I used to feel not good about that type of stuff. I have gotten a bunch of like private message comments and just direct, if you want to call it accusation, it's not like it's a crime to create art, but it's, oh, how could that be Blender? This is, you recorded this, man. Or, how did you get the hair to look like that? That can't be Blender. That must be AI but there's tricks and stuff. And I used to feel that I needed to explain myself, and I'm kind of happy that I haven't gone down that road, because I don't have to explain anything in terms of how I make it. But that feeling is kind of an unhappy and toxic feeling to get across, and that's just the nature of how people can be, on social media, with their anonymity, and they could just say whatever the hell they want. It doesn't really bother me anymore, but it used to sort of hit me the wrong way, especially around the time when I was also teaching. And I'm not saying that this happened in my class, but as someone who felt a responsibility to share and be open with process, and then get these type of condescending comments or questions, I guess, it made me ask myself a bunch of times, wait, is it just me? Am I just taking it the wrong way? Maybe they just don't know how to communicate what they mean right off the bat, so I'm just taking it in a defensive, hostile way. And I stopped thinking about that, honestly. But it's interesting you asked that, because it was a thing. It was a thing that was in my head for a little bit.
What about at work? Do they ever?
No. People at work, everybody's very open-minded and excited to do art and try new things, and I haven't gotten that at work, really.
What about people who aren't artists? Don't they think that?
No, generally I don't get that from non-artist individuals. But it's interesting. I get different type of comparisons. Like I can put something up, and they're like, "Oh, this is just this movie, but this is just the cheaper version of this movie." Whatever it reminds them of, which is fine. I take that as a compliment, because if I'm getting better at producing visual imagery that visually has a higher quality of fidelity and it inspires it reminds people of other films that they've seen, actual high production quality movies, and I must be doing something right. I don't really care if it's like this is that type of comment. It's I don't mind, because I used to get that a lot. I feel like with my paintings even, but it's the important thing about that stuff is to not let it get to you, because I've seen many artists and some friends of mine get into comment wars, internet. Just I'm gonna engage in this conversation under the comments, and it just turns into this childlike thing that then they later end up regretting wasting their time in, and now it's permanently online. It's permanently on the internet. You can't erase it.
That's what's scared about the internet.
Yeah, it's definitely not a pleasant thing.
Do you ever see comments about a comparison? There's always a comparison. Oh, Google is better than Apple, or Final Cut is better than Premiere, things like that. Or a Mac is better than Windows.
Oh,
what
sure.
about Blender? Do they ever
Oh my
mention,
God.
oh, Blender is better than
You know,
Cinema 3D or
Cinema 4D,
4D?
right.
Or
Maya.
oh yeah, Maya.
Or
Is that
Houdini, or I don't know if it. I stopped listening to that.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it's happening, but the Blender as a tool has come a tremendously long way, and it's amazing now, more than it ever has before, and it only has upwards to go. And I don't know what the other tools are like, really, but I do remember comparisons between Unreal, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Unreal is the production quality level tool you want to use. Blender, not so much. Blender, yeah, maybe for game cinematics. The thing is, I'm not the idea of evoking something that looks visually photographic and real is not. I mean, that's more of creating an illusion, and I'm using my knowledge base to get to there. I'm not relying so much on the tool itself to give me that automatically. And I think that's where those comparisons are coming from, is more like technical topics. Unreal can render or light things in such and such way, and Blender can't really achieve that. Or so I have heard that. I really didn't care. It doesn't really apply to me. But what I did care about is how flexible and organic Blender is to move around in and create things with, in comparison to other tools.
Just for kicks, curious.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do like 30 seconds timing, and I just want us to name anything that people like to compare to. So you're gonna say Toyota and Honda.
Oh.
Panasonic and Sony.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
Interesting.
30 seconds. Let's see how much we could do. Ready and go.
American and German cars. Oh boy, PC and Mac.
That's two.
I don't know. That's
Six,
hard.
5.
Oh boy.
4, 3.
Night versus
2,
day.
1.
that doesn't even make sense.
Okay, that's it. So what else happened in your week?
What about you? I think I said a lot.
Are you done? Because
yeah, that's for my week. That's usually what's been happening. Yeah. Aside from mundane stuff like housework, which I'm not going to talk about, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been. And working out, of course, with you.
Yeah. Okay, so me, I have been reading this book, The Odyssey of Homer. I'm almost done, but it's like 3 chapters more. And then I'm going to be finally done. Yay!
Wow. That's really cool. That's I've only heard that those books are not easy reads.
It is harder than Fire and Blood from the House of Dragon, R.R. Martin's book. But yeah, this book, The Odyssey of Homer, it's all about, are you interested what the book is about? You have read it before.
I've not read The Odyssey. I've read the Iliad.
Yeah, it's all about mortals versus immortals. So gods versus humans. It feels like they focus a lot about how rituals are in respect to the gods. Let's say an example that happened in the book. After a war, before you leave that place, you're supposed to do some kind of ritual, or else the gods are gonna curse you, or your future's not gonna be as bright. It's always like a consequence. Whatever you do in this world, it's a consequence to what the god is gonna do to you.
That's cool. Do you find similarities to like current culture, current life?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Like in Catholics.
Just normal human existence. Do you find similarities in how people are with...
How they use their intuition or superstition stuff. When you sleep, you're supposed to arrange your bed. Your head shouldn't face the door.
Oh, the feng shui thing?
Or the mirror should not be...
Wait. Why shouldn't the head be towards the door?
Something about bad luck or something.
Oh, shit.
There's others like, oh, like that Bloody Mary. Don't say it 3 times in front of the mirror.
I thought that was just a kid's thing. You know what's funny about that? It takes effort to do that.
I mean,
I
would you
never-
do that if you say Bloody Mary 3 times in front of the mirror? Something could happen to you right now. Would you do that?
No, because I don't want to like manifest that. That's weird. It's like saying like, did you know that if you slap a tree 7 times and say the word orange, something bad could happen? It's like so out of reach. Like you have to do that. Whereas, you know, sleeping with your head towards the door, that could be a very common thing that people don't know about, and it brings bad energy or bad luck or whatever. I mean,
You know, in the like New Year, you're supposed to open all the cabinets for money. Oh, your parents actually does something similar. The bread.
That's different.
They bake the bread and they put some.
That's different. That's for
Symbolism.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, Christmas. That's kind of the same.
Oh, I see.
A
what you're
ritual thing.
saying. A more ritual thing.
In the Philippines, there's a lot.
Mhm.
Because we have these inhuman dwarves. If there's grass and there's a big tree, you're supposed to say, "Excuse me." You're supposed to say over and over when you're walking on the grass. It's in Tagalog, so I don't know what
Right.
translation is. But something about "Excuse me, I'm passing." If you don't say that, you might step on one and they'll curse you.
But they're not physically real. It's more of like a.
They're physically real. They're too small that they have to be warned if you're gonna step on their area.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. It's definitely a cultural thing, though. Like,
Well,
or
there's a lot that happens in the Philippines that's very spiritual, like weird things that goes on there because there's like a lot of
right.
countrysides and hidden places and dark places.
Right.
I don't know how it is now, but back in the day when I was living there, we don't have pole lights, like street pole
Light
lights.
poles.
We don't have sidewalks. There's a lot of natural things, not man-made. They don't tamper with the areas. So that's why they think, because it's very nature-driven. So what comes with it is other nature stuff, which is supernatural stuff that comes with nature. Because they're part of nature.
That's very interesting.
We don't have it here because it's very man-made, the places here.
Yeah, right. Very more geared around the business and the money side and the industrialization and all that. Okay, so the Odyssey talks a lot about themes like that like where the superstitions come from.
The book is very mythical and very ritual, and they would talk about certain characters having a bad omen and how to
destroy the bad omen.
Yeah, how to like normalize your life.
Right.
How to cut the
bad lineage of the omen stuff.
of the curse, how to lift it out from you.
Right.
The example that they had over there, one of them didn't properly or didn't even do the ritual before they left the war. While he was away, his wife tempted by this other guy.
Oh, I see.
So they messed around and then he has been like manipulating her. At the end, when the husband came home, she actually murdered her husband.
Oh no.
And that, they say, is because
he didn't do the
was
ritual.
Cursed. Yeah.
What was his ritual that he was supposed to do?
Sacrificing animals, pouring blood, sprinkle water, and you're supposed to say something 3 times. So there's something like that going on in the book. But there's another one. I think the title was Dead City or what do I call that? Underdead. Dead world or something like
Underworld.
that. Underworld.
The underworld.
When spirits come out and they're going towards you, you protect the blood that's dripping using his weapon. This ghost that he's been waiting is the only one that's supposed to drink the blood.
That's crazy.
So he met all the dead people that didn't die properly and their souls were still lingering. So by doing whatever ritual he did, it helped their soul have a path.
That's interesting.
That has I mean, doesn't religion, they kind of do that here?
You're asking
Like
the wrong guy.
they're
But
in purgatory, like
oh
these
yeah,
souls
yeah.
in
Oh right.
purgatory,
Sure,
and you're
sure.
supposed to pray. Like has to be in a stretch of I don't know how many days that will help their soul get
Sure.
accepted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I've heard about that. I've read about that as well. It's just interesting how that story of him being in war, and then I assume he's rushing home. He can't wait to come home and see his wife. That's why he forgets the ritual. He neglects the ritual. He's like, screw it. Oh, I'll do it. Everything's fine. I can't wait. So he comes home and he's forgotten the importance of it and the neglect of having that discipline and ritual. He comes home to somebody else who ends up murdering him.
You know, war is very stressful. You just don't want to be there anymore.
Right.
The war has ended. You just don't want to suffer anymore. Because there was a lot of them that didn't do the ritual. Because something happened of him and I think it was his brother. They had like a disagreement and they had kind of like a argument. I don't want to get too much into
Oh,
it.
sure, yeah. You know what it makes me think about? And I know this isn't Greek. It's more, I guess, Roman and everything. Makes me think of Gladiator. And I know that's not the same time area. But makes me think of Maximus escaping, returning home to find his family gone. But it just, I wonder if in the writing of Gladiator, those ideas were used as inspiration. Anyway, that's cool though. So as you're reading, not to keep asking about that, but as you're reading this, do you ever extract moments or scenes?
Other thing that this book reminds me is the World of Warcraft because you kind of go to uncharted territory. That's, let's say, the siren. They go to this place and you're supposed to not listen to their songs,
To their voice.
and it also reminds me of Game of Thrones for some reason because of all the.
I bet they definitely pulled from,
You
I'm sure R. Martin was inspired by, these books, these writings. I mean, this is old stuff, but yeah, the structure behind that's for sure flows into it. I might be overconfident in saying this, but I'm almost, not quite 100% sure that unforgiving, bleak structure of storytelling in Game of Thrones, where you don't know what's going to happen next, definitely comes from in the Odyssey. We're sticking so close to these characters we love, and now they're gone. It's very entertaining.
Very imaginative.
Yeah. What else has been sort of entertaining?
What have you been watching?
Well, what I've been watching.
Yeah.
I've been on a Paul Thomas Anderson kick yet again. I always go back to his stuff.
Paul Thomas Anderson. Okay.
He made Punch Drunk Love, Heart 8, Boogie Nights.
So you've been on that kick, huh?
I went back into his movies.
And then he kicked you.
He kicked me so hard, and I always love watching his movies, just the way they're written. But I'm watching it for the shots, the camera moves again, the editing. Like, I'm watching scenes again and again to see why it makes me feel a certain way. And I'm learning from that, and I'm trying to sort of, both for my work and for my personal work, to recreate it, to use motifs, to use proper intention behind shot moves, let's say. And then that also helps me with editing. It's, what's interesting? When you shoot something in a way that pleases you, it makes the editing even easier. It makes it second nature. At least
what
for me.
movie were you looking?
No, when you make a shot, let's say, in Blender, or if you go out and shoot stuff and you shoot it in such a way where you love how you've done the blocking, it's great for you. The performances are great. The composition's great, and then you wrap that up. Later in the editing, it becomes so fluid, and it's more about like nuances of what elevates it even further. It's interesting. But if a shot is executed in a way where it is sort of half-assed or rushed, if you've neglected the love behind it, the editing is hell because you're trying to save it. You know, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been watching Paul Thomas Anderson again and again. Sometimes just snippets of his movies. I haven't really sat down to watch a full movie. I almost did. I almost watched Heart 8 to its fullest.
You know, I always interchangeably, when you say his name, and there's another director, the one that does a lot of color in their shots.
Oh, Wes Anderson.
Oh, Wes Anderson, yeah.
The symmetrical,
He's the one that
colorful
does,
shots.
yeah.
Yeah. You know, something interesting is his movies did not always look like that. That started, like, he found his thing, I think, right after, like, it sort of came to birth right after the Royal Tenenbaums. But he did Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and then Royal Tenenbaums, and those three were very, very 90s like quality to cinema. And then his more current stuff, it looks like beautiful children's book illustrations. I think that's the whole point. I like it, but it's interesting to compare his early stuff to the look of his early stuff to the current. That's what I have been watching. What about you? What have you been watching?
I watched The Holdovers. It's a 2023 film.
Right.
The main character is Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti. Yeah.
The second main character is Dominique Sessa.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know. And also Davine Joy Randolph. Do you know her?
I do not.
The director is Alexander Payne.
Oh, Alexander Payne.
You know him?
I've heard of him. Yeah.
The writer is David Emmingson.
What else has Alexander Payne done?
Okay, let's see. He
Alexander.
directed
Yeah.
Nebraska, The Descendants,
Oh, okay.
Sideways. Oh, he did Sideways.
Yeah, I heard.
Election. Oh, I like
Election. Yeah. I heard of him many times, and I knew I know one of his films, and it is in fact Election.
So this movie, I like it. It's about the transformation of these three characters. They actually have a lot of things in common. They're awkward. They kind of felt like they lost something and that they're given a bad hand from life. Like they feel they're treated unfairly. So they put on a front, they act tough, easily irritated. These characters, it's something that's unappealing. You wouldn't want to hang out with someone like that. Or why are they acting like that?
Yeah.
It's because they're trying to cover up the pain that they have, or something that they lost, or something that they want to have, but it's out of their control. And they cope with this loss or whatever they're missing, or the void inside of them. How they're acting to cover this pain. From opening up, they began trusting each other, even though at first they were kind of annoying. But through the journey, they all realized that their insecurities, where they all are sharing this loneliness from pains from their past. There's a lot of nice compositional shots.
Oh, cool.
There's so many like emotional moments.
That's interesting. You know, a friend of mine recommended that movie to me, The Holdovers. I know you've already talked about it, but he recently said, "Oh, you should watch Holdovers," because to him I recommended a feel-good movie, a totally feel-good movie called Breaking Away. You should check out Breaking Away, by the way. That's a cool movie. It's a 70s or 80s movie. Breaking Away is awesome. But I told him, check out Breaking Away, feel good movie. And he says, you should check out Holdovers, since we're trading feel good movies.
But it's not a feel good movie.
It's interesting.
It is a dark comedy. So
it's a dark. Okay.
So maybe that's why it feels good.
Right.
Do you ever feel like because of your past that you have put up a front of a character that kind of developed?
100%. Yeah. It was something I couldn't really be mature enough and conscious enough to know that I was doing, but I did it sort of instinctually, naturally to survive school. In my head, think that I'd be more acceptable and likable. I'd put up stuff like that, And it took me a while to realize that none of that shit mattered. It actually, people appreciate you a lot more when you're just yourself and honest and real. But that's harder to get to after the fact. It's interesting. And, being an immigrant kid, my parents just watched over me to be safe and to think on my toes and to not do stupid things, but they wouldn't have been able to mentor me on how to be amongst the German kids in Germany. And they wouldn't have known for me how to be with kids here in America, different cultures. It's a culture mix. That's where the culture shock idea comes from, Definitely have put up something. Right now, at this very moment, I'm a bit too relaxed to call out exactly what that was, but I can definitely think about it and maybe mention it or bring it up again in our future episodes, because that could be an entire podcast to talk about this stuff. That's deep stuff. That is deep, emotional, dark, thrilling, and entertaining stuff to go through that life, and I'm sure you have as well. I'm not proud of it, by the way. Yes, I have put up that front. That doesn't make me better or something like that.
A lot of human behaviors could relate to losing something, whether it's like a job that you really wanted or opportunity, trust. There's a lot of things that you could grieve upon. Trauma that molded them into someone that could be opposite from you, but actually you guys are the same at the end. It's just that this is how you deal with it, or this is how you just developed into. An example, I was bullied a lot in the past,
right,
and this is how I am acting right now. But you also was bullied in the past, and you're different than how my character. So when we are approached by a bully again, you reacted a different way than how I would.
Right. It's interesting how that hasn't, and I know this kind of might sound vague the way we're talking about it, but how we cope and how we deal with it has matured, and the way we react to it nowadays is also matured, because I think maybe people take measures to better deal in a retaliatory, sometimes even confrontationally violent way to bullies. And the way we have, both you and I, learn how to retaliate is by being observant to how other people do it and learning from the rights and the wrongs, which is, I think, a really smart way to do it, but it also could be a longer journey to get there.
In contrast, how we approach it, it's like we want to do the right thing, like still being the good, treating people fairly, versus someone who was bullied in the past. Who are they now? They could be also one of those bully. Yeah.
That's kind of like that quote from The Dark Knight, right? I mean, I might be wrong. The only time to this day I ever lock up, which is embarrassing to admit, is when I'm confronted by someone that I deeply care opinions about, but they are like testing me, and I'm like, God, but I've been tested by a variety of people outside of the tight, individuals that I love. Didn't give a shit. I couldn't have cared less. Like, they test me, and my response was either snappy and smart-assy or comical or whatever. Didn't care at all. It's interesting. It's interesting when it comes from someone, let's say, that you want to impress or prove yourself to, or show them that you care, and then they're like doubting, or they're pushing you to be better, let's say, in that moment, it tightens up. And I don't necessarily run away, but I sort of like pause. I stop and I'm like, all right, I got to think before I do anything or say anything, and I go quiet. That's what happens. And I know that's that's not a very adult thing or a man thing, but it happens. Not very often, but it happens.
I mean, normal reaction if someone's very intimidating, so aggressive, and really talks really loud, like they're of course big. If they bully me, I'll really have a mental block. I wouldn't know what I'm gonna say. I'm definitely gonna wanna run away.
It is, yeah. I mean, it can.
Or if they're gonna ruin my career, yes, I'm definitely gonna stay away from you.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna put you in the box.
Put me in a box.
Yeah. So what's in the box? Is it you or is it? Anyway, our next section. What's in the box?
It's me.
You, because I put you in there. Never mind. It's so corny. Stop it.
It might be corny.
Okay. So we're going to talk about an article again. What's in the box? All about procrastination.
Uh-oh.
Does that interest you? Hopefully it does, because that's what we're talking about. Procrastination. Why do people procrastinate when they're creating or when they're working, or many things you could use this for? And do you know why people procrastinate?
I mean, there's probably many different answers to that, I guess, but
What word pops first in your head?
laziness?
Oh yeah, I guess.
Fear?
Okay, yeah, you got one
Fear.
right. Okay, so why do people procrastinate? Fear of failure. Should I just say the numbers? So there's fear of failure, there's perfectionism, there's overwhelmed, there's a lack of inspiration. Number 5, unclear goals. Number 6, external distractions. 7, decision fatigue.
Oh, like too many choices.
Yeah. So we know fear of failure. We know perfectionism. If you want me to elaborate on any of those.
I definitely agree with all of that, as to what would lead to procrastination. And yeah, it's a common thing, because regardless of how much you've improved, there's always a new challenge, and around that challenge you could hit that wall of choices that you have to make, and that could tire you out, especially when you have a low bandwidth that week. You've been doing 3 different things to try to keep up, and then that comes through and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna put that off because I can't right now.
Yeah. Can you relate to this? Under perfectionism, instead of just getting words on the page, you end up spending hours redefining a single scene. Or I guess if it's your drawing, you're putting too much detail, you're noodling on, you're avoiding
the big picture.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because you're afraid it won't be flawless.
Yeah.
So
I definitely relate to that, and it's one of the most annoying and painful things that I think I've, in a way, a process way, I've liberated myself from that, because at least the way I create things now definitely does not allow me to noodle or be precious or perfect because of external opinions that might be hovering over my head, and judgments and of other people that might be inspiring certain decisions. Nope. It's, at least the way I do things now, gets me to make pretty confident choices to produce a shot or a still image. And the great thing about that is forces me to think about what really has always mattered, which is story, and everything else kind of falls into place accordingly. instinctually, by feeling and by story, to communicate the idea to the audience. And before, though, it used to not be like that, because it was my own personal process in painting something to get it to look the way I wanted to, the way my vision was. But it's the romanticizing of the process itself that got in my way, which was a huge pain in the ass. I always would fall into that of like, oh, but if I treated it looser here, or if I made the brushstrokes more rough here, or then I will get that transparency and blah, 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 and all this and that. And it doesn't matter. It matters to me and maybe other artists that will pick up on that, and that's fine. But it doesn't matter, because in the end, the story is so in the rear view mirror. It doesn't read. It doesn't come through, because you can tell where the weight, where the heaviness of the process was spent time on, and with, my current process is, which is working, I still work 2-dimensionally, but it's also working 3-dimensionally, using Blender, for example, or, mixed media. Sometimes I incorporate my own photographs or videos in my designed 3D work. It becomes less about the finesse and the glamour behind what painting is, and the heart of paint, and what painting's all about. I walk out of that mindset of being a painter and really sit down and learn to be a better storyteller through a visual medium. That's what it's all about. And I'm telling you, I absolutely relate to what you're talking about, but it has been so freeing to not have to worry about that.
What about overwhelm? You feel some kind of daunting feeling that you're hesitating to start because you don't know where to begin, or there's so many things you think you should do, and it's making you just feel too overwhelmed.
Yeah, I've experienced that as well, but not that doesn't happen too much for me to talk about it in length. But the times when I have experienced it is when either I'm just having a bad week, and the task for work, because if it was personal work, I'll put it off. Nothing's chasing me to complete my personal work. But when it's for actual work, becomes overwhelming and daunting because of the bad week that I'm having, be it because of external or work related stuff. But I've never really, for any other reasons, felt overwhelmed other than that.
What about lack of inspiration? Sometimes the ideas just don't come. You might feel stuck, staring at a blank page, hoping for a lightning bolt of creativity that never seems to strike. The hard truth: it will never strike if you don't put yourself in the line of the storm, standing under the metal flagpole and hold an umbrella. What does that mean? You are in control of your own inspiration. If you don't sit down to write, true creative inspiration will never come. Don't only rely on a good little idea that might pop into your head while taking a shower. What do you think of that?
That's interesting. Yeah, I relate to that. I don't think I've had the lack of inspiration in a long time. I think I had lack of inspiration when I was struggling to figure out what I'm going to do in this entertainment business as an artist, before I broke through and made my actual portfolio that defined my name, I guess. I definitely was like, I don't know what the hell to do. I don't know what should I do. As of recent, though, I've told that story before. I'm not going to say it again. But like, as of recent, the lack of inspiration, really, I don't see it that way. I don't think it's lack of inspiration. I have so much inspiration. You are my inspiration. The movies are my inspiration. Life is inspiring. Everything, every experience, good or bad, intense, or sad, or frightening, or even bad dreams or good dreams. It's all inspiring. It's all inspiring. Something that's just could be bleak or arresting, where you can't. It's something so devastating might have happened in your life that you have no desire to produce art. Later, that will be inspiring. If you truly, truly love what you do, later, when you get back on your feet, that experience is inspiration. Everything, your life is inspiration. So with that in mind, it's not so much lack of inspiration, but lack of knowledge on how to better communicate a deeper or more sensitive or complicated idea with your story. That's hard. And that sometimes can feel like lack of inspiration. Like I guess I'm not inspired enough. No. You are. It's just you're maybe getting stuck or tunnel visioned on how to properly say something or write something or shoot something, direct something. And that could feel very depressing. That could feel like things are just falling apart. But a lot of the time, the solution for me for that has been simplify. And I've been telling that to myself so much as of recent. Like, simplify, keep it simple. No. Keep it simple. I'm going to create a shot that does this, that. No. Don't make it do anything. Just hold it still. That's it. Keep it simple. That could be confused as lack of inspiration, but it's not, in my opinion, my humble opinion. What about you? Have you felt that with
I noticed that I feel like I have lack of inspiration, but it's probably not that. When I have lack of energy, I feel just so tired,
right?
Maybe burnt out,
right?
And if I'm probably don't have enough sleep or I'm sick, it kind of makes it look like I lack inspiration, but maybe my body is just reacting to whatever condition health-wise. So, and then I confuse it. Oh, I probably don't have enough inspiration.
Totally. Yeah, me too. I've been in that as well.
And here, unclear goals.
Right. That's kind of in the same place I was just at. The unclear goals.
Creators need discipline and structure, at least in some way. Without clear goals such as deadlines or defined sessions, it's easy to say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. So I guess when they say defined sessions, it's like from 9 to 5, I'm going to work.
Totally. Oh my God.
If it's like your vacation, but you need to finish something because you have a deadline.
I've been thinking about that. Time management, and that's planning, and it's very important. And it's, that all of that is about, actually? It's not about rush and get it done now because I've planned it, it's actually about patience. Patience makes you a better director. And I get it. It could be waiting for the actor to get his or her lines right, waiting for the perfect time for the shot to happen. I don't know, whatever. Could be that technical stuff, but it could also be your own lack of patience, and you skip over important steps to develop better discipline, time management. And that reminds me, it's something just blew up in my head. When I was learning to draw, I had tremendous lack of patience. I was rushing to make drawings as fast as possible. And my mentor, Kevin Chen, would tell me, slow down. And I didn't know what that meant. I thought it meant to physically slow down with my hand movement. That's part of it, but very small part. Slow down as in think about what you're drawing. You got to think, slow down. He's only telling me he's patient as a teacher by not unveiling everything and saying exactly what I need to hear, but he's only giving me, he's pointing at the door like Morpheus to Neo and saying, you have to walk through it. So he's pointing at the door to me by saying, slow down. I have to figure out what that meant. And in order for me to figure out what that meant, I had to become more patient. It's patience. It's interesting. The thing you were just saying, it's at least that's, to me, that's how I relate to it. It's very, and it could be the hardest thing. That definitely could get in the way of a lot of things, actually. And it could be even, you can end up feeling like you've been misled. Oh, I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I'm looking at it with the fresh pair of eyes after my little break. It looks like crap, because you're coming back to a place that you previously rushed through, and now you're looking at it and you're like, I could have done this so much better. But if you had sort of had a powerful intent beforehand, and you made the thing you were planning, and you sculpted your time around it and life and whatever, even when you come back later to it, if you've taken a break from it, it'll still be as powerful. Even in a new, refreshing way, it'd be powerful. I've noticed that. Personal experience, not speaking for everybody, but I've noticed that about me. And you know what? I'm still working on the patience. That's something I've always had a problem with. Patience. Like, I want to get it done. And that's a current thing, even with my Blender stuff. I want to make a new thing. I want to share it. Who's asking you to share it? Nobody. I just want to do it so I could keep up. Keep up with what? You know, I'm talking to myself. This is mirror talk. You know that you've heard this quote so many times. To become a better storyteller, to become a better director, you got to be patient. You're learning patience, and you're doing it opposite again. What are you rushing to put out? Why? Is it the trend? Is it the social media trend? Because people are saying you got to put out content every week. Who gives a shit? If you truly love the craft of telling story and movie making, if you really respect it as an art and not as a business of making money, that's when you'll learn the patience about it. I've told that to myself, and I often neglect it because there's an endorphin hit when I make these things for myself, and I edit it and I put it out, and I'm like, oh yeah, it feels good. I finished it. It's like a painting. I'm treating these Blender things like how I did with paintings, but they could be so much more. And I think once I step up from that, it'll become better and better.
On the standpoint of a student, I believe they're impatient because they want to hurry it up to get to the finish line and start work. Maybe when you were saying about you were a student under Kevin Chen,
totally,
you were in a rush because you want to get better already.
Yeah.
You want to be in that status of I'm one of the best artists in the class or in school, so right. I want to hurry so I could be that already.
Right. Which is the beginning of a downfall. That's exactly how that devastating brick wall is met even faster. Is when you rush and to get out and to work for that reason. That's the reasoning. And it's hard. It's really hard to realize this or see it. It's really hard to see the truth behind it. As a student, without anybody telling you this, what we're talking about right now, it's hard to sort of like realize it. So you kind of have to experience it for yourself to come from it with a feeling of an understanding and appreciation of what it means. Yeah, when you're rushing just to get it done with, so you can start the journey with your career, that's not the point.
Not enjoy. Yeah, because they're saying the point is you have to enjoy the journey, not the end goal, right? I always hear that.
I mean,
Enjoy the journey, not the end.
yeah,
Because
you can enjoy both, but yeah, that is true. You want to enjoy the journey.
when I was a student, as an artist, I always wondered how could I enjoy the journey, because I was also at that impatiently rushing because I feel like time is ticking and I felt like I was too old starting as a student, as an artist, and I don't want to take my time and get a job like really old. Like, oh, I can't afford that. I just feel like I have to be serious. I have to pay attention. I have to be focused. I don't want to waste time because time is precious and I'm not getting any younger, and it made me not enjoy the journey, but I'm enjoying the journey now. Yeah, I feel like it depends what kind of journey it is.
The thing is, though, you came into it with a lot more maturity, which is a difference. If you came into it with a lot more of a life experience, and you didn't pay attention to useless crap. I paid a lot of attention to useless crap, even in the art stuff. You knew exactly where you needed to be, and you took that route, and you got there. That's the best. That is the best. But when you're actually younger and a student, a lot of the time you don't know where you're going to be. I wanted to go where I was headed when I was younger and going through this, but I never paid attention to the fact that I had a love for wanting to make movies, actually make movies. And that only recently came to the surface again, just because of, I already talked about this, but just because of life and the way things were pointing for me. But, and because I was inspired by you, you're creating your own personal work and stuff, and like, I should do that. Anyway.
Okay, so...
Yeah, what else? What else is on the thing?
Yeah, I'm going to combine this to external distraction and decision fatigue. I'm just going to read them both. So let's face it, life gets in the way. Social media, emails, household chores, and Netflix can all pull you out of your creative flow. You may think that watching this new series on HBO Max is going to be research. But what good is research if you don't apply what you learned? We have to manage these external distractions. They will always occur. And decision fatigue, writing involves constant decision making. Should your character take this action? Where should the scene end? Should you stick to conventional or unconventional process? Too many choices can lead to creative paralysis. Okay, so those two, what can you say?
I definitely could relate to that as well. Like, here's the thing. If the choices are given to me and I'm being told you can only choose from that, I guess it could be easier to do it. But if it leads me to overanalyze stuff, that's where it happens. That's where the paralysis happens, where I'm like sitting there and overthinking it for hours.
Do you have trouble, like, how am I going to start this painting? Am I going to do reference first, or do you ever do that? Like this?
No.
Having
I used to, maybe for a very short period of time, but then I learned when I was painting, I learned very quickly how I should always just go for it. And I learned that from my father. My father's work does not allow for time wasting. Once it starts, he has a system that it goes. Now, a painting could be started many different ways, but there's a certain point in a painting where you can make a decision after you've explored and danced around. There's a certain point where you can go, from here on, I'm taking this process, and that's how it is.
What if you go in a meeting and your shots were not getting good feedback, and again you're being shut down. Let's say a lot of people liked it except this person that their input really matters, and then you're kind of doubting yourself, and when your other coworker looks at your painting, it's like really amazing, it's so good. There's so many decisions you don't know how to follow through the person's taste.
You want to know an honest answer to that? I do my best, and I it's out of my control. If it truly doesn't work again and again, I do my best to produce the highest quality that I can, and that's in every sense, to tell the story clearly, and if it's still not hitting the mark, you just keep trying to do your best with different versions until you're sick and tired of it, and you just keep going and going. And then it's a communication thing. Sometimes it's not your own fault. Sometimes it's the client coming to a realization of what he actually wants or she wants, and it's at the time when it started, they had one idea, but then that idea stagnated, and they looked at your work, and then they go, "This is not what I want." And you're like, "Oh, but I thought that's what you said." "No, I hate this." And then you pull your hair out and you make stuff, and then you come back to it, and maybe that triggers something to the client, and they go, yeah, I think that's what the direction. Yeah, go into that. Or maybe it doesn't. But it's not, at that point, it's not in your control. You really are doing a lot. You're not failing them. You're not making bad art because they can't make up their mind. They're
the ones having decision fatigue.
Maybe they are. Yeah, maybe they are. Or maybe they're not trying hard enough to dig deep, and they're maybe looking at it from a different perspective. Like what's going to get more money? What's going to attract
what's going to get more views and likes,
or whatever the hell the purpose is. Yeah. So, and you're coming at it from a designer, from a painter, from a feeling. Can you imagine what a person who composes a score to a movie goes through if they're not going? They're given a rough edit of the film, and they sit there and they make a score, and the director goes in and he's like, "What is this? What is this piece of crap?" And then I took the music and I threw it out the window, and I fired him in front of his family, and they all walked out. That's actually what happened in The Exorcist. That was my William Friedkin impersonation. What the hell is this crap? Some Hollywood orchestral garbage. I took that tape and I threw it out the window. Anyway, people get that reference. Hopefully it's funny. Can you imagine that? And that's the end of that guy for that movie. He probably made scores for other stuff, of course.
What about the external distractions? It was saying here, you may think that watching this new series on HBO Max is going to be research. But what good is research if you don't apply what you learned? I thought watching is always research.
Yes, that's kind of weird. That's a subjective thing. I think watching is research.
But I guess he's saying if you don't apply it, if you're always in the role of...
Oh, yeah, if you just like spend your time just drifting away into movies and you don't get anything done, yeah.
But I feel like that's still really helpful. I know you're wasting time.
Listen,
if there's a deadline.
It is helpful.
But if there's no deadline, then it should be helpful, right?
In my opinion, in my book, it is helpful. It is, call it whatever you want, research, whatever. It's like listening to music. You sit there and you go, I want to make something, and I think it belongs in this world, but I need a fire starter. I'm just gonna listen to music. You're just sitting there listening to music, and you're thinking of ideas, and ideas come and visuals come. Same thing, like, oh, I have a list of these 2-3 movies. I'm going to watch these 3 movies. Oh shit, I know what I'm going to do. Like immediately pops up. Could be What did you say? Netflix?
Reference.
Oh, reference.
I mean, also you
Yeah.
get to the long hours of
Yeah.
just looking for reference after reference.
Yeah.
You go in this rabbit hole of places that's probably not related, but then it's still good.
Yeah.
Even you go in like YouTube looking for reference, I think is a distraction, but I feel like it's helpful
Yeah.
because you get to somehow you'll be able to use it. So let me just say, to overcome the procrastination, you have to embrace the imperfect first draft. Number 2, set clear and achievable goals. Number 3, establish a routine. Number 4, limit distractions. Number 5, create accountability. Number 6, use prompts. Number 7, visualize the end result and reward yourself. Number 8, reflect on your why. And that is it. And there's like a lot of details under it. And since we've been going on for a long time.
I mean, no, I mean,
that
that's kind of sums it up. You don't have to keep
Yeah.
going. I don't think so.
Did you still want to do questions?
We should leave that for the next time.
Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed our rants. Hopefully it makes sense and hopefully you learned something and hopefully, I keep on saying hopefully because I'm hopeful. Please subscribe and like so we know that you guys like what we're doing, and comment below so we know that what we should do right or what we're doing wrong, and it'll help us a lot. We are very appreciative with your comments from our podcast. We're very grateful and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's been a very fun thing to come back into this and keep pushing forward, to share and to reflect and to find common ground.
Yeah, it's our way of giving back to the community, what the kindness we've been receiving at our work. It's all about connection and inspiring other people and getting inspired. Circle of life. Before we end this, what are your last words of inspiration?
If we want to talk about inspiration and feeling inspired, to be self-aware and appreciative of what you're doing with your time.
That's good. All right, you guys, enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll see you again, or we'll speak to you again when the time comes.
When the time comes, that's right. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.